Good evening. Call the meeting to order at 7:01 tonight. Welcome to the August 25th Grafton School Committee meeting pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GLC 30A 18 and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Grafton School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. And a reminder that people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by visiting the Zoom link found on the Grafton Public School website. We'll need to take an attendance and announce all committee members and school officials on the roll call. School officials on the call, and we will have a roll call vote for all votes. So I will start. Laura Often here. Jennifer Conley.
Jennifer Connolly here.
Amy Marr.
Amy Marr here.
Elizabeth Spinney.
Here.
Rahula T.
Paul Rathi here.
And our student rep, James Dewar.
James Dewar here.
And our admin team, Dr. Cummings.
Jay Cummings here.
Tracy Kalo.
Tracy Kalo here.
And Anita Patel.
Here.
Perfect. So as we've been doing, public comment is currently suspended. Our Q&A is open for questions only. We will not be sharing any comments during our meeting, as I've said the past few weeks, but in case you've missed it, for us, our meetings are a time for us to work together and communicate to the public our district plans, our policy, and our updates. And we ask our viewers at home to continue the same decorum they would using during an in-person meeting. We'll ask that you hold your questions until after the committee has had time to discuss and ask our own questions. And to make sure that to get through as many questions as possible, we'll have our clerk, Amy Marr, monitor questions. We'll allow for one question and one follow-up per person to our meeting. And any question that we can't get to, we'll post on our website during the meeting. And we'll retain the right to ask anyone to leave who's unable to act appropriately. And we always invite you to reach out to us via our school email accounts or on our GPS Facebook page. In addition, that was from last week. And finally, while we were possibly facing some weather conditions, if we are unable to complete our meeting due to technical difficulties, we do have a meeting posted for Thursday night, but knock on wood, it's looking okay. And just a chairperson update real quick, on our agenda, we'll need to add policy. So we'll get to it after the financial reports, if that's okay with the committee. And then I have a very quick chairperson's update. When we met 3 weeks ago, I neglected to mention that we received a letter from the Grafton Teachers Association sharing their concerns about the reopening plan that we discussed. I had shared the letter to the committee prior to our meeting, so the letter had been read and addressed during our meeting. We've since posted the letter on Facebook, and I'll include it in this week's minutes so that it's in the public record. But I really wanted to apologize for making any teacher feel unheard. That was definitely not my intent at all. So I appreciate it, and thank you. And now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Cummings, and he will give us an update on fall planning.
All right. All right. Can you guys see the slide? Can you see that, Laura?
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, so obviously we can take this 8 million different directions, and feel free as usual to interrupt and ask questions, ask whatever you like at any time. I was going to talk briefly about the latest guidance that has come out and what we're still waiting on, our schedule in terms of next steps as a district, buses and transportation, sports and extracurriculars, ongoing planning, and then some of the challenges that we're facing. So obviously, I just want to reiterate that we're facing an unprecedented challenge. I think largely most people do seem to understand this. We're really building essentially three models. It's almost like 3 districts within one district, and largely staffing that with existing staffing. It's incredibly, as hard as that is, then you layer on special education needs, English language learner needs, different levels. It's just incredibly complex work. If you told me, again, that we had a year to do this, I'd say we'd be pushing our luck. And we've really had a couple months to really work it. Couldn't be more thankful, obviously, the support of the school committee, the GPS community has been super, could not be better, more patient, supportive, etc. You touched on the GTA, Laura. All of our unions have been absolutely great to work with. And it's hard. Everybody's super stressed about everything. Where somebody had mentioned, that metaphor about like flying the plane as you build it, and that's what it feels like. But people really have been working together. We're going to need more of that than ever going forward. I think the 0% went back to there's just a 0% chance that we're going to make everybody happy, but we're doing, I just want to, for the 100th time, say that we are doing the very best that we possibly can to do what's best for every student, every family. We're getting back to everybody. I think we're communicating as a district very, very well, but in even the old days, being a year ago, a request would be responded to generally within 24 hours. Not only can we not get to everybody as quickly as we want to, but we can't always provide what they want either. It's just incredibly challenging. In terms of the latest guidance, I think it was on Friday, last Friday, that the commissioner put out guidance that spoke to his recommendation that all staff basically provide instruction from their individual schools. So even those districts that are doing all remote, to have the teachers attend the school district so that they can have access to materials, time for planning, tech support, etc. Right now, that is our plan for remote and hybrid. I may, with our remote learning academy, either tonight or tomorrow, at least put out the idea of having staff be able to be in the remote learning academy and provide instruction from home. So that's not finalized yet, but that's one piece of the guidance that I may follow through with. Also in the guidance, the children of staff, not only for our Grafton teachers and staff who obviously live in Grafton, but any teaching staff who lives in Grafton, but maybe has a job in Mendon Upton or Marlborough or what have you, should be considered for full in-person for their students. At this point, we're not adopting that. We just put out the cohorts today. So we've had them pretty much done yet, like this morning. So all day today, the rest of this week, we're gonna be working feverishly to complete the staffing. Once we have that completed, if we do have any capacity or space, we're happy to take a look at that, but there's just no way I can commit to that knowing that we don't have that staffing, we don't have the class sizes set. We've got a pretty good guess, but we need more than that before we open the doors to any other possible students attending every day. We're still waiting. We have the basic guidance on masks that came, say, the end of June. This is still a follow-up. We may have talked about it at our last school committee meeting where the Duke study, there was a study that was released from Duke University. It was somewhat controversial in that some people in the science world didn't think it was as scientific maybe as it should be. Anyhow, it had basically ratings for the different types of masks that are available, and some did a lot better than others. That raised many, many questions, like can kids use those gaiters, which in that study showed to, I think if anything, it made it, at least in that study, made the situation worse. So everybody across the state is wondering what the actual guidelines are for the masks. Not that they have to be worn, not when they have to be worn, but the actual, the material, the number of layers, et cetera, for masks. So we're waiting on that from the state. And then this week, they're supposed to put out more information on time on learning. And what, so far, there has been no, nothing has been released that would indicate that there's any kind of reduction in the requirements around time on learning. I'm not expecting anything significant to come out of that, but that guidance is supposed to come this week. So in terms of the schedule, we sent out the cohorts today. Many thanks to Neil Trahan and the tech team and all the principals for putting that together and then streamlining it through PowerSchool. It's no easy task. Where I talked about the staffing, that's a massive, massive challenge for us. So as we staff, we have to identify the holes that we have in the staffing and the needs that we have. I've voiced to the entire community that about 25% of our students are full remote, meaning the other 75 are hybrid. The added complexity with that is some of our students with special needs, English language learner needs. Those students, many of them qualify to go full in person both weeks. So as complex as just setting the two cohorts is, we have another layer of students who are attending every day. So staffing, any way you slice it, staffing is going to be, it's an incredible challenge to spread our staff to meet all of the needs we have. Again, really creating 3 models within one district. So that's incredibly challenging. We know we have holes that we have to fill, so we're going to use some of our COVID monies to fill those holes. And then there are other hires that need to be made. We have to add to our custodial staff. During the day, typically at all 6 schools, we have 1 day custodian. We need a minimum of 2 custodians full-time for all of the ongoing cleaning that takes place. I mean, they're going to be maxed out, even doubling the number of custodial staff that we have. So we have to hire at least 2 additional nurses to be float nurses for when nurses are out, and nursing aides to man the 2nd nursing room that we have to provide in each building. So we have to do a lot of hiring, and I'll get to it later in the presentation. We're okay fiscally, but it's a challenge. I mean, I think people think that the COVID monies are this endless, bucket of monies to be used. We could not do it without those monies, but they certainly are not. That's not a bottomless bucket by any means. Once we do all the staffing, again, we're shooting for the end of the week. It's probably not realistic. We still have people who, we almost finished. We still haven't chased down everybody to find out what cohort, or excuse me, what model they're looking for. We're going to have people that need to change, they change their mind, etc. It's just like we have so many moving parts. But we're going to try to do as much of the placement in terms of staffing and then the corresponding placement as we can, as quickly as we can, but it's going to take time. Anita's been doing a fantastic job working with AA Transportation. She had a meeting with them, I believe it was yesterday, and they worked through now what next steps are. So we've shared with them the cohorts. They're going to build out the routes. As soon as they've done that, basically they're going to plug students into the existing routes, and then we'll share that out. We're hoping that's done sometime next week, and that would, when it comes out, it's going to look much like it typically does, where you're going to have the bus number, you're going to have the pickup and drop off location, the bus stop, and the approximate time that that pickup or drop off would take place. Staff start next Monday, the 31st, and we're hoping to run open houses, as I mentioned at the last meeting, for students new to the school or new to Grafton the week of 9/7. The high school's already started to do that. We're not locked into that. Some schools may do it prior to that. And then we start up school on the 16th of September with cohort A, and obviously the remote learning academy gets going on that day as well. In terms of transportation, we're again doing the full routes as usual. We're aspiring to have a monitor on every bus. There is not a great demand we're doing okay with the postings for teachers. We were able to get out ahead of that very early, and thank goodness we did. We're finding that with the monitor positions, paraprofessional positions, so those that are hourly, we're getting and this isn't just us, across the state, there's very little interest. I have to think that many of those, the individuals who would normally do that would be the fathers and mothers who are also providing daycare in this hybrid situation. If they were from another town, many of those towns are going full remote, so they can't be providing, full remote and or daycare or childcare to their own kids, and then working for an hourly wage in the schools. So we've posted so far, I think we had one application for bus monitor, and we posted for 17. We've made AA aware of that concern. They're working to see if they can drum up any interest in those positions through their means. Historically, they've been pretty good at getting monitors, but again, this is an unprecedented time. No matter what, we're going to provide that cleaning of the buses between the runs. The monitors would certainly help speed that up. It's not going to be a deal breaker if we don't have them, but we'd like to have them. As I've mentioned before, we're going to reduce the number of individualized stops. I've communicated that a lot. Anita's still going to get 8 million emails that say, my son gets really winded when he has to walk down to the bus stop. Can we just have it at our door? We're going to have to say no more than we have in the past to those requests. And the reason isn't to be torturous. The reason is that the more that we can have group stops, the faster that we can have the runs completed, which provides the drivers and or monitors time to clean the buses between the routes. So I'm going to communicate that many times, but it's still going to be a challenge for some people. In terms of sports and extracurriculars, we've hired a new athletic director over the summer. I may have mentioned Kevin T before. Kevin's coming to us from the college realm. Fantastic. He's hit the ground running, been phenomenal. The guidance was released by the MIAA in terms of guidance for sports. You may have seen there has been a lot of talk among conferences and statewide discussion where, even though the guidance came out that sports are going to start in mid-September, that some districts are opting not to start in September, if at all in the fall. So I think that's probably going to be a developing story. Right now it's set for mid-September. Football and fall cheer are pushed back as it stands now to late February. Start 2021, basically a fourth season was inserted into the schedule. If we do run middle school sports, and again, that goes back to discussions that are ongoing at the state level and conference level, we would plan to run soccer and cross country at the middle school as of today. I put out word a month or two ago when we started getting questions about extracurriculars. So all the clubs we run, activities, all great stuff that we do, especially at the middle school level and high school. We do a bunch at the elementary as well, but they're most frequent or highest in number at the secondary level. I put out word that I wanted to put a hold on everything until I think I said the end of October at first. We'll probably pull that back to end of September at the very least, and we'll see how things go in obviously the first 2 weeks. I did give the green light to those activities that can be run remotely initially, that can get up and running, and we can make that work through Zoom or other means, then fantastic. We want to do that. We want our kids to be engaged, jump into these activities. But let us get at least, the very least, a couple weeks under our belt in terms of getting all the procedures, protocols, get some sanity in September. And then we'll talk about any kind of move to in-person extracurriculars. So in terms of planning, we've consistently since March talked about the potential that no matter how it shakes out or what we plan for in the upcoming year, there's certainly a likelihood or a chance that we could end up having to go full remote. It could be for a week, it could be for a month, it could be for the remainder of the year. We don't know, but we don't want to be caught flat-footed. A lot of the work that we've done to produce what I think is a very high quality hybrid program and remote learning academy, a lot of the learning that we've already done and will do with both of those are going to be applicable if we do have to go full remote. But and Tracy's been great with this. We've started, well, I mean, we're working overtime and then some on the immediate concerns. We do and have been talking about and planning if in the future we have to jump to full remote, we want to be able to do that as quickly and efficiently as possible and have it look and feel different and better than it did March to June of this past year. Obviously, we don't have like a system in place yet, but we've been talking a lot about that ongoing assessment and improvement. We are flying by the seat of our pants, and I think we're doing as good a job as any district that I know of. But it is so challenging. But as we get going, I certainly hope, and I think I've said this consistently, by the end of September, we are going to have had many conversations on a daily basis about what's working, what's not working, what can we shift to make better, what tools do we need that we don't have, what are we using that really isn't that effective and that we can shift away from. It's not going to be, all right, here it is, and let's just close our eyes and do it. We're going to be consistently looking to get feedback and improve as we move forward. Part of that is how we utilize Edgenuity. So we're going to have that learning platform that I've talked about, Edgenuity's grades 6 through 12. We've been looking at a couple other programs that we're looking to purchase to cover us K-5. Now that's not going to replace the things we've talked about, be it the hybrid remote week or remote learning academy, but it will give us a backstop. Like if we can have a high quality platform, and the state has recommended a few, Edgenuity's one of them, that's well-known, has a good reputation for being a high-quality product that has pieces that we can take as needed, that's a huge asset for us. If we have to at any time, we can use them throughout, but if we have snow days and we decide that we're going to go all remote, we have something to fall back on, not depend on, because it's going to be in concert with direct GPS, teacher instruction, checking in, etc. But that's a huge help for us. So we're working, I think it was this morning, it feels like a year ago, Tracy and I met with a few different providers of K-5 platforms. So the idea would be to have high quality platforms to be a backstop for us that could be used as needed as we move forward. If we ever have to shift for not just a day or two, but for a week, for a month, for 3 months, to full remote, that gives us a wealth of resources that we don't have otherwise. So that's the planning that's going on amidst what feels like literally 1,000 other pieces, but those are some of the bigger pieces. And then challenges, easily the #1 challenge right now is staffing. The numbers, again, I talked about it being like that 25%. The numbers aren't horrible, but they of course don't fall like you'd want them to, like it's not clean. It seems like with every different model and every different grade level, that extra 6 kids, if it's remote learning academy, that extra 6 moves a group that would have been a very comfortable 2 to 3, for example. That could be for hybrid remote, that could be for in-person remote. I'm not shocked by it, but the numbers, like when we initially ran 17%, things just, given our size and the staffing, et cetera, those numbers fall together better than 25, 26, or 27%. So staffing is a real challenge. And that ties to funding, which I'll get to in a second. So I can speak to anything on staffing. I mentioned the custodial, the nurses, but teaching is going to be, that's huge for us. And we've already done quite a bit, but as we now arrange and schedule, we're going to see that we're short in whatever, I'm making this up, but grade 5 remote hybrid. And then, okay, it's not as if we have some closet where we just, store grade 5 certified teachers. So we've got to hire, but hiring, I'd love to say we could hire and we've got somebody tomorrow. It just doesn't work like that. And we are hiring at the same time that every other district in the state is hiring. That's a challenge. Time, we just don't have enough of it. I mean, I think everybody on the leadership team and all the support staff are going what feels like 24/7. There is zero, I can proudly say that there is no way that we could work harder than we're working. I'm worried that a lot of people are working too hard, to be quite frank, because it's not as if Monday comes or the 16th comes and okay, we can now really take a breath and it's easy. It's still going to be really challenging. And then funding. So we've talked about funding in a general sense. I'm going to still talk about it in a general sense tonight, but basically use this as a precursor to a longer, more in-depth presentation that I'd like to do with Anita on, I think, our next meeting, September 8th. And we're going to be communicating. I've talked to the new town administrator a couple times. He's gone this week and really starts in earnest next week. Anita and I will meet with him and kind of just work on getting on the same page. So we have monies. Maybe Anita, I don't know off the top of my head know what the total is, but I'm going to roughly, Anita's going to correct me. Let's say it's $1.5 million for COVID monies. That's great. It's $1.5 million that we didn't have before. There is no way we could do any of this without that COVID money. What that COVID money goes to in different amounts to everybody in the district can really be spent on three things. So that's staffing that I talked about. And it's got to be related. It's not like we can just add, everything's kind of COVID related, but these are positions to fill definitive, defined needs. So staffing, PPE, fairly straightforward, but that adds up. We're talking about over 3,200 kids, take 500 out, high 2,000s in terms of kids that need PPE that we need to be able to provide for all the hand sanitizing stations, all of the nursing PPE, all of the cleaning supplies. We have a large district that's expensive. So PPE and then tech. Some districts lucked out in that many districts are one-to-one at this point. We're already one-to-one with devices K through 12. Probably the majority, at least in this area, were at least 6 through 12. So they still had to spend money on tech, be it software packages, remote learning platforms, but we have the additional cost of getting to one-to-one for grades 6, 7, and 8, which we were not at. So that's a significant cost for us. You do the basic math and you get to, Anita, do you have the number?
So right now, I'll say that we've spent about $180,000 just on PPE, and that's between the end of FY20 going into today. We've spent about $180,000 just on PPE alone. And then, so in total, regarding the grant that we got for the COVID, it's basically divided between COVID monies, which is the CARES Act money, and we have money from FEMA as well. And it's divided, it's a total of like $1,665,000. And of that, I think it was 764,500 that can go towards CARES Act, and the rest of the 900,000, that's all FEMA reimbursement.
Some of that includes the town, correct?
It does.
Right.
Yep. So that 1,165,000, that is shared between the town and the school. So it's not all of it is not ours.
So thank you very much, Anita. So we're not out of money, but we're definitely worried. No question about it. And it doesn't make me feel any better, to be quite honest. It might make you feel better that every district's going to be figuring this out. As soon as we're ahead of the game, believe it or not, it doesn't feel like it, but in terms of that we're already staffing and have created our cohorts, we're actually ahead of many districts. Once districts do that, that's when the how tight the budget is becomes a real reality. The PPE, we're going off the state bid list in terms of those rates. So we're getting the best rates we can. Districts, that's almost a set cost, if you will. I explained where we stand with tech. So now it comes down to staffing. So any gaps we have, we have to fill those gaps, but I'm concerned about the funding. And we'll be able to have a better picture even on Monday, just knowing that we'll have more time to work the staffing. So again, we still have monies to spend. We have unspent at least, let's say 600,000, but just adding nursing, teachers, and custodial, that's gonna go quickly. So that was the funding. Oh, and then I wanted to also mention, this is another, this keeps Anita up at night, and probably every finance director, and it's on my list of worries, but this isn't in the top 5, is that almost all of that funding that Anita talked about, be town and school, expires, like it's set up on the calendar year rather than the fiscal year. So I am banking on that changing because every district is facing this. But if we go, so just to make that clear, those monies basically expire or go away at the end of December. For PPE, okay, that's a set. We could take our best guess what we need for PPE for the remainder of the year. You buy it. Same with tech. That would kind of work. Where it doesn't work is with staffing, unless we're going to lay people off on January 3rd or whatever it is. All of the people who we have to hire to cover this new COVID-related schedule and the models, we don't have monies to fund them beyond January 3rd, technically. There's one grant, I think it was a tech grant in that 1.6, like 80,000 for just, again, for technology. So 98% of those monies across the state are right now set up to go away December 30th. That's if that becomes a reality, that will be a unbelievable issue for everybody across the state for the reasons I spoke to. So we'll have some kind of backup plan. That's what we're going to meet on Monday, whether it's spending out all revolving funds. We'd have to go to like every rainy day fund known. We're going to have some kind of backup plan if for worst case scenario. And we're going to come up with a plan, but I have to think the state or the federal government or both are going to come up with some kind of solution because it's just not tenable for any district. And I think that was it. I had another point, and if I think of it, I'll mention it on funding. How about questions?
Liz?
So just to clarify that last point, so we can't designate the money to certain things and report back. It actually has to be spent and off the books.
Yeah.
So we don't get it until it's actually needed and spent.
Right. My guess is, I mean, I don't think for a second this was like the plan financially.
Yeah.
I think back, I mean, we still don't even have a state budget. So things are being done based on previous plans. I don't know exactly where they took the state money and the federal money to provide COVID money, but they weren't thinking of that a year ago. So they took existing funding that was scheduled to expire at the end of the calendar year, which could happen all the time, and it just doesn't affect us. We don't think twice of it. They had to use those monies for this purpose, but the school year doesn't match up with the calendar year, so that funding mechanism works short term, but it doesn't work past December. I think that's my, correct me if I'm wrong, Anita, but that's my simplistic thinking as to the issue at hand. I don't think they just didn't realize that school goes till, June. And I know they being on the feds, on the federal side and state side, they are keenly aware of this problem. This isn't unique to us.
Okay.
Jay, you mentioned that, we're planning for readiness for full remote, but I'm also just going to assume we're also planning in case we're full in person.
Yeah, that's full in person. I could plan that all day, every day. That is like my dream at this point. But yeah, we'll be ready for that.
Okay, because I'm just assuming there'll be some sort of phasing in with those who are remote learning if they decide to, I don't know. I just kind of want to make sure that it's there.
Yeah, we have talked about that. I think I know we're gonna have a better idea once we have these 3 theoretical models. Once we see them in action, then we're gonna know how to transition better. But we have talked about that. I think I would like to think by October we'll have a plan to transition back in a positive way, for sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Who is deciding how much of the money we're going to get?
How much we're going to get?
We get for the schools, how much of the 1.665 million is going to go to schools versus other town uses?
Because of the given situation, we haven't, at least I haven't, Anita, if you have, feel free. In a very general sense, I did have one conversation by phone with the new with the town administrator, and we only got as far as agreeing that we're going to discuss it when he comes back from vacation this coming week. So there was, maybe Anita, you can speak to it, there was a basic proportion that was set a while back when the money was first delineated to the town.
So yeah, I think back in maybe at the end of June, sometime in May, there must have been some collaboration between the town and the school, and there was basically a long list of items that we would need for COVID-related expenses, and it was divided between FEMA and CARES Act, and the total was 1.6 million. But there were some overlapping expenses like disinfection and signage and PPE. So there's some categories that were going to be shared amongst the school and the town. So as Jay just said, we're going to have to sit down with the interim town administrator just to discuss and just to show him how much of the funds that we've already expended, and just to speak to him to see what the town has spent already.
If no one else has any questions, I have one more. Regarding busing, I understand that bus routes and the number of kids on buses was not necessarily taken into account when we were figuring out the cohorts. So are we hoping that the numbers will work out so that the spacing works on the buses? Or
yeah, that's a good way to put it. We are meeting tomorrow. Now that we have the cohorts, that's what we gave to AA Transportation. It does look, in terms of that survey, I forget the actual number, but it was maybe 30-40% of the total students wanted to access bus transportation at this time. So in a general sense, when we talk to AA, they think it's going to work out, but that's what they're going to find out for sure as they plug in the numbers that were all the individual kids that was provided to them today.
okay, thank you.
Jay, first, I really want to thank everybody. I know you're not even joking when you talk about how hard everybody's been working. It's obvious, and we really appreciate it. If there's anything that this committee can do to help, please let us know. I know we're all kind of anxious to help you guys.
You guys have been great. Laura, you did ask at the last meeting, you asked about food service for...
Yeah, I was going to ask again. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just wondering how we were going to reach the kids that might be remote but still need breakfast and lunch, or when they're on the remote week and need them. Are we going to be able to help them?
Yeah.
And how?
So Anita and I met with AA Transportation. We did meet with AA. We met with Whitson's as well. They do food service. They're much better with food. They did a fantastic job with Tony LeMay and Dan Gale at the time in terms of what we provided last time. That we talked about how that was so successful, and we want to replicate that. So we are going to offer what's probably going to be a weekly pickup. That by the tail end of our experimentation, that worked best for people. So we would have probably a weekly, it might be 2 times a week pickup set up, where we'll reach out again to, we'll put it out to everybody, but purposefully reach out to those who we knew stuck with us all the way through. The pickup is either going to take place, our first choice is going to be at Millbury Street, just because that drive around the building pattern worked brilliantly. That's going to tie to the schedule though. If they can only do it when school's in session, if that's the case, there's not privacy. We're going to have kids that go outside and we don't want cars driving back there. If that's the case, our backup plan will be to use the area behind GMS. It's like the back of the, if you go behind the Grafton Middle School, that's where the back door to the cafeteria is. And we would have pickup and delivery, if you will, or the handoff of food at that location. So it's going to be one of the 2 locations, and we're good to go.
Great. Thank you for that. And then when we were talking about the funding expiring, and I know it seems like I haven't heard much chatter about that yet amongst my colleagues around the state. I'm guessing, just like you said, once people kind of get everything in place, it's going to happen. But I don't want to just sit back and hope that the state and the federal government's going to do the right thing. So do you think it'd be at least helpful to reach out to our representatives and kind of put this on their radar that
I think so. I think maybe if you guys, if you're open to it, we're just waiting, at least waiting until on Monday. I mean, we talk about this daily, but on Monday, myself, Anita, and Kristen Gasper, who obviously knows the ins and outs and every piece of staffing, are going to get together and look not just short term, but obviously look long term. And there will be some things in our general budget. Now I'm going off your question, but I'll get back to it. There are going to be things in the general budget that were built in for a normal school year way back when, like sub. There is monies in our lines for subs. I don't anticipate, at least for half the year, being able to get any subs. So we can reallocate some of the monies that we do have. But I want to be able to come back to not only understand it, obviously myself, where we stand, not only today, but like time to forecast out 6 months. But once I have that picture, share it with school committee, and then be able to, I'd like school committee to be able to advocate, but to do so in an informed way, as opposed to the little bit that I told you tonight.
Right. Well, sure. I mean, if you want us to be educated, that sounds.
So give me a few days to educate myself and you guys, but certainly by the 8th we'll have that. There is a commissioner call with superintendents tomorrow. Obviously, most of the focus is on the here and now, and people are just trying to get literally through the next couple of days. You do see it already playing out in the bigger districts. It'll play out everywhere, but there was an article, I didn't actually read it, but in the Telegram and Gazette today about Worcester and its challenges, where they certainly got a ton of COVID money, but there are also a ton of needs paired with regular budgetary needs that's a bad formula.
Yeah.
I don't know if in that article they talk about the December 30th piece, but that's just another variable in there. So I'm giving you the longest answer ever. But yes, advocacy would be great. Just give us a few days to get you information.
Perfect. No, that's good. I just want to start thinking about it, and I don't want us to get to November and
Oh, yeah,
have
no.
not, have not done anything.
Yeah.
And then I guess my last question, it's all about the challenges, so I'm sorry for that. So with the staffing issue, is there a possibility that we'll need to reach out to families again and ask them to make a different decision on remote or hybrid, or push
I
children
don't
into?
think so. No, I think we're okay. I think we're going to be okay. It's just this is kind of back to when I talked about the reality. This is where reality hits with, and I think we've been incredibly transparent, I think, and constantly talking about this, whenever it was, this is our best thinking right now. It's just so hard to make the staffing work in a meaningful way. I think we'll do it. It's just a real challenge. I already have people, they got the cohorts today, and okay, what's the staffing look like? I used to complain that it was so complex during a normal year. That seems like an absolute walk in the park next to this. But I think we're okay. I would definitely communicate to school committee in the community if I didn't think so.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I'll go one more round at the committee, and then I know I asked people to hold off typing questions, but you can start typing them in just to give you time. But does anybody on the committee have any questions on this?
I had one follow-up from our last meeting. Jay, have you had any luck getting wipes since the last we spoke?
I don't know. Tony hasn't burst in saying, "Oh my gosh, the truck full of wipes came," but they could have arrived, and I'm sure, like everybody else, he's avoiding me like the plague. I will find out and let the committee know.
Great. All right, Amy, Mara, I've seen one bright question there for a while, so
Yep, just one.
far.
Islami asked very early on, class placement was communicated out to parents or to school staff? And I think that might have just been Jay, meaning the cohorts, not the class placement.
Yep, I'm sorry if I was confusing yet. Cohorts went out today. If you didn't receive a cohort assignment, just you can email me and I'll connect you with somebody that can help you out.
Great. Amy,
That's it.
That's it. I'm going to just give it a couple seconds because everybody's been so nice waiting like I asked, then they might not have time, if you guys don't mind.
Well, I can ask like a question, just a little question.
You could, if you'd like.
So up until now, Jay, you've basically said, and now my cats are meowing at each other. If any parents have questions that can email you, are we at the point now where you want parents to contact building principals with questions, desires to change and that sort of thing? Or does that need to still go through you?
That's a good question. Yeah, anything that you think is building specific, meaning it would have to do with a school schedule, anything about logistics for a specific school. I get a lot of general questions about, students moving around the building, stuff like that. That I'll handle and pass on anything that comes my way. So when in doubt, feel free to email me. But anything that's not district related, that's school related, that going to the principals would definitely help streamline the process. Yes.
Amy, you read my mind. I almost was going to post, and this gives me a chance to talk about my favorite document, which is the chain of command document, which lives on our website under the school committee. And I will post it tonight on our page as well. Just when in doubt, who do you go to? If you have a bus question, a teacher question, we've been very transparent. And Jay, you've done a phenomenal job this summer, and as has this committee. Everybody's been jumping in and helping and asking questions. But when we get back to school, it's in reality, you're going to like the manager before you're speaking to the person that could probably help you the most if you go to us. And I think we will start needing to redirect back through the proper channels as much as possible. So that's my 2 cents. And do we have a question?
We have one more question. Allison Wilson asks, how are paras going to be assigned to the remote intensive needs kids?
Yeah, I can't think of a way to answer it that doesn't sound like sarcastic or something, and I don't mean it that way, but they're going to be assigned to the intensive special needs student. Whether it's going to depend on the individual. Some individuals are going to need somebody essentially paired with them throughout the day. Some, depending on the need, it might be modified, but that would be on an individualized basis.
So similarly to how you would pair and under a regular year, but it's just remote.
Correct.
If that student's remote and not full-time.
Yeah, right.
Good. Okay, great. And you know what? If somebody comes up with a question, Amy, obviously we can go back to it. I thought of that once I said that. We're not.
Yep.
We can move on.
And that type of question, that's a very good question, but something that's student specific. If we don't think the principal might know the answer, going to Bob Wall or Nicole McDonald, going through our special education director or assistant director, they've been great about connecting people with individual teachers and programs. So we can get that information. Some of the student specific stuff is tough to answer in a general sense, but if you email myself or them, we're going to get you an answer.
Great. Thank you. All right. Well, great job. And we can go back and stop sharing our screen. I don't think we have any materials for this next item,
Okay.
which is the Town Administrator Search Committee. So Mr. Carlson, the select board chair, reached out to me to let us know that according to our town charter, the school committee gets 1 seat on the search committee for the town administrator. We didn't get a lot of information on what that would entail. I served on the search committee for the superintendent, did an amazing job. I just want to give myself a shout out. And that what that meant was you had to attend every meeting. It was a lot of meetings in a short time. So there was a bit of a commitment. It's a rewarding experience. You'll work with members, I believe, of the finance committee, select board, library, building trustee, I think planning board, and then 3 members at large. And I might be missing somebody, I apologize. So my thought, well, I was going to open it up to see if anybody was interested at first, and then I did want to make sure everybody here could at least give a bit of input, especially Jay, who has to work very closely with the next town administrator and kind of what we're looking for. And we don't have to do that right now, but if we could funnel our thoughts through just whoever's doing this to remember that they're representing the schools and the committee and the school committee, and that's their role on the search committee. So anybody really want to be a part of this?
I'm interested.
All right, Liz Spinney is interested. Anybody else? Otherwise, we can make it easy, or we can make Liz give us reasons why she would be a good fit. I'm just kidding, Liz. All right. Thank you, Liz. I think you would be excellent. Can I have a motion?
I nominate Liz Spinney to represent the school committee on the town administrator search committee.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right.
I think she'll be great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Liz.
I think she will be as well. I think anybody who on this committee, we have such a good committee, and I think Liz, you're going to be phenomenal. You know the town really well, and it'll be great to have you. So if the vote passes, I guess. So all in favor, I'll take a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Raul Rathi, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
and Laura Often. Aye. All right, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Liz. I will let Peter know. I was supposed to let him know by September 4th, and then you will be, I'm sure, hearing lots more information. And then I don't know how people feel, if we want to talk right now or if we want to send our thoughts to Jay, who can funnel them to Liz on what you're looking for. I'm sure we're probably all looking for similar things, but we can do either or. Amy?
I would be interested, maybe not now, but perhaps in a document. I'd be interested to hear what Jay's looking for, since it is that working relationship that's so key. Having never hired a town administrator before, I think it would be great for us to kind of get his thoughts on what the relationship can be and what he's looking for. That'd be helpful to Liz too, I think.
Yeah, I think I said that also. So, yeah, I agree.
Great.
I mean, I think for me, I would really like somebody that has worked before. I mean, I know the town administrator is representing the whole town, but just somebody who has maybe some background with school budgeting, who looks to the schools as a partner, communication, and just is willing to work with us would be something that I would be excited for.
Mhm.
But yeah, Jay, I mean, your thoughts.
Did you want to give thoughts now or come back to us?
I'd rather, I think we're all better off if I give some thought to it and come back to you.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in, or do you want to just move along? I'm stalling because I have to give a little presentation next and I'm nervous, so. All right. Okay, great. Well, thanks, Liz. That's exciting. This is exciting. Like, what a great opportunity. So, good luck.
I'm looking
All
forward,
right. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. Thank you for stepping up. All right. So before I share my screen and my presentation, well, no, you know what? I'll just jump in. Sorry. All right. Can you guys screen? Yes? Let me move you all out of the way. Oh, my internet is unstable. That's fun. I saw a funny meme early in the pandemic that said the internet was unstable, and then they were like, that's not the only thing that's unstable, and I don't want to make that same joke. Okay.
Laura,
So first, yeah,
if you hit present, it will go full screen for you.
thank you. Here we go. Go back to my cover slide, right? All right. So I want to thank, can you guys, all right. I want to thank Laura Deneen, Kristen Proctor, for big help about the closed captioning. Kristen Proctor serves on the Town Disability Commission today, and she's been sending me information as well. And then Kristen about this and tests, and then Matthew Often, who's also had to sit through a lot of closed captioning discussions and tests as well. So this came about way back when we had a parent on our first meeting say, you know, are you guys going to be able to do closed captioning? And I thought, yeah, I'll just turn it on. And that turned out that's not the case. And now I have spent the strangest summer of my life and now learning a lot about Zoom and closed captioning. So basically, this is what I found out. I wanted to bring it to the committee because there's some spending involved, there's some decisions to make, and it's clearly just not my decision to make. So why closed captioning and understandable for all? And I don't think it's any longer an if, it's a how. We may not be doing this for so long, but I think there's a good possibility that we'll all be going remote in the future. And I think that we should lead the way in the town. I don't know of any other committees that have been talking about it. I've kind of talked about it with the Disability Commission, but I don't know if their meetings are closed captioning. I'd like us to be able to demo it and then work with the other town committees to kind of help across the board. So I started with options. The very first thing I looked at that everybody talked about was this company called Rev. So I jumped in, I think it was like midnight that night, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna fix this tonight. The pros were it got great reviews, it was really easy to use, but I found out that what everybody uses or what people say is just for the meeting. We use Zoom webinars. I personally do not want to advocate to go back to meetings. I don't think they're appropriate for how we conduct our meetings to have all the attendees there. We're kind of giving a presentation to people who are listening, and I didn't want to go for that option. So while it was the cheapest option, it doesn't work with webinars. And we could purchase a $10,000 package, and that would work with the webinar. It's an enterprise package. But I kind of moved away from that because it was the most expensive option. And I'll say their customer service has not been amazing for me. I eliminated that. Next thing we could do is have live captioning. So the pros on that is, one, I mean, I could assign right now any one of us who could type along. Committee members, we could have somebody participate in our meeting as a live captionist, and that is super easy, and it would probably be the most accurate. We would just need to hire somebody. I was working with Kristen. She has a couple of people that she could refer me to, and she says it's about $120 to $140 an hour. That's certainly an option for us. I don't know the availability of these people, and I haven't been able to get somebody to commit yet, but I can. And finally, I found, and I was super excited, this 3Play Media company. I already set it up. Thanks, Anita. She got us in where they have our information. It costs 60 cents a minute. It's very easy to use, and their customer service has been great. So I tried it out, and the accuracy with our current technology, kind of like right now we're BYOC, we're all working on different computers at home. I don't know what everybody has. It wasn't great. I was going to try it out tonight, but I didn't want to waste money from the district, and I didn't want people to get discouraged that the closed captioning wasn't accurate. So I reached out to 3Play Media's supports team, and they sent me a list of things on why perhaps it wasn't accurate. And the main thing was microphones and headsets. I'm using I don't know what everybody else is using. I'm just using my little microphone on my computer. I don't have a nice headset. But I think that if we actually used headsets, 3Play Media would work well. Then there's certainly some additional options. So when I spoke with Kristen from the Disability Verbit, she works in the education world in the higher ed, and this is more for classrooms and education. I also reached out to this company, ACS, which is, I was impressed with them. I haven't gotten really any pricing from them yet. And then I was told that Microsoft Teams has a really good built-in automatic captioning. That would require us to invest in yet another meeting solution. And I'm not sure we really want to do that at this point. I think we've all gotten comfortable with Zoom. It works well. And I don't know, the district's a Google district. To throw in Microsoft Teams, I think I wouldn't recommend, and I'm sure Neil might be screaming at his computer at home. So finally, I personally, after all my research, I recommend that we stick with 3Play Media. We test it with a proper microphone and headset, which I haven't done yet before this meeting. And then if that works better, move to purchase microphones for our And sorry, can you guys still hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I got the unstable thing again. And we go from there. So it's super easy to use. I already know how to set it up. I do think it will work if we have better technology, though that's my strong hypothesis. So I might have to come back in 2 weeks and let you know. Matt has a really good headset I could try out at home, and I don't know why I didn't think of that until today. But that's my presentation on closed captioning. Do you have any questions? Oops. And I just put in a little graphic.
I have one question, Laura.
Sure.
So if we go through this company, can it be used throughout the district? Like, meaning, can teachers use it also, or is it just? I guess that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it would obviously depend on budget, but yes, it certainly could be. It's pretty easy to implement. I have our Zoom, the district Zoom account is already set up for it, so it would probably just require. I can figure it out. Anybody can figure it out. Let's put it that way. So I'm not sure what the district-wide need is for Zoom learning at home. One thing that I've kind of learned through this process is that it's really if people use.
I didn't
You
hear
can't
you.
hear me.
I couldn't hear your last statement.
See, this is a great example on why we need closed captioning, right? So people rely on the closed captioning more than just an interpreter. They lip read, it helps reading comprehension. Now, if we were gonna move into a district-wide one, I think there might be different programs. There are some designed for education, and that is bigger. That would be a Tracy J. Neal thing, I think.
All right, and then
I would assume if a teacher needed this, they, well, 100% they could use it.
And then I have one more question. I'm assuming that, so if we go back, or when we go back to in-person meeting, it can still be used?
So that's a great question. And that's been something I've been wondering about too, because we don't have, so I reached out to cable and I asked Mr. Datoma, and he's not here tonight, and I said, is that something like, don't you have closed captioning? Like when we are on Grafton Cable, for instance, and he said, no, they don't have the technology for that. However, we're on YouTube. So it's not live, but all of our meetings load up to YouTube. And I've learned now how to get the closed captioning on for our YouTube meetings. So I'm gonna work with Jack and Bob to make sure when they load up our meetings, they'll be captioned, but it won't be live. So when we go back to our regular meetings and we're not Zooming anymore, that's where I don't understand the piece, because it's cable. Like, I'm not recording out anymore. And that to me is a bigger town issue. And I think something that we could work with the Disability Commission on how to help with that. Because I was surprised that didn't happen. But I don't want to speak. It was one email with Bob, and who knows what was going on, and they're always so great to work with. So I wouldn't mind following up with them as well, but.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? It's like nerve-wracking to take questions on my presentation. Oh, Rahul, what do you got?
It could be a funny question. I don't know how good that company is with Indian accent. Will they be able to do closed captioning with that? We have to really test it.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Am I off?
We missed the last thing that you said.
Oh, I said we'll have to really test it, and that's a good question. What they can do is it learns as it goes, and we can provide samples and words to them. So, and I think with you, I mean, so Jay and I tested it out, and it wasn't great. And that was us kind of talking normal. And I think we go pretty fast in these meetings as well. So I think there'll be a little bit of a learning curve And the nice thing about this company is that we're not locked in. We didn't buy a whole package. It's kind of pay as you go. So if it turns out that it's not great, we can just start. Seems to be a lot of other companies. But I think that's a really good question, Rahul, and we'll have to make sure that you can be heard and we can all be heard. And I'm not an expert on this company. I don't have any financial gain in them either. Just to be, I feel like I'm really pumping them, and I don't know why. All right, Amy, I see a question from the audience. It might be a comment. I'll take a comment if somebody's an expert on this.
I've got a question. Terry Turgeon is asking if we have any deaf or hard of hearing students in the district who might need it for remote learning.
Yeah, which I think is similar to the question that Jen asked, Jay.
I'm assuming yes.
Yeah.
And then Laura,
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, we'll work with teachers and we can provide them with this service. And if they're remote, unless they're in full person, and I know we worked to get masks that were clear to have lip reading and all of that. So.
Yep. And Laura Deneen, whom you thanked at the beginning of the presentation, comments that, yeah, a lot of the kids, both hard of hearing or kids with differential learning styles, will need closed captioning for remote and potentially in-class learning. So
Yeah.
something to think about, because these will be live now instead of pre-recorded moving forward.
Right. That's a big difference. Yeah. So I would be happy to connect. Again, I don't want to I also don't want to say that I'm like this world-class expert all of a sudden on closed captioning for Zoom, because I'm not. I did get a little obsessed with it, and it has, and I want to follow it through because I want these captions, but I would be happy to work with somebody. I'd also, the woman I spoke with from the Disability Commission, she was very, very helpful. She is an educator, so she had some different ideas on programs that might be better for the district-wise versus what we need it for. And again, I don't know if I should connect with Nicole and Bob, or you want to connect, or what we want to do about it, or if you want to think about it.
Are you talking to Jay? Okay.
Can you not hear me?
You've been very wobbly, so it's been hard to. You were talking and he wasn't reacting, so I didn't know if you were talking.
I could hear something, but I did not know it was directed to me.
That sounds like my life. I talked to Jay, and
usually you don't sound like that.
I'm sorry. I do seem to have an unstable internet connection tonight, so I apologize. I don't know why, but so actually, Jay, so what I asked was following up on Laura's questions and Terry's questions. What are our next steps in working with the teachers that might need closed captioning or will need closed captioning for their students? Do you want me to kind of connect and share what I've learned?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very surprised if we haven't
solved it already.
Or maybe not, but I don't think that in that realm this is going to be news to them.
Yeah.
But let me connect with them tomorrow, and then if needed, obviously just connect with you.
Sure, and they may have already figured it out, which I bet.
Yeah, I don't know, but it hasn't come to my attention. And I would think if we hadn't figured it out even in the spring, it would have. But
right.
let's make sure.
Okay, great. So with everybody's okay, what I would like to do before our next meeting is test this with some better technology. If it doesn't improve when I'm on better technology, I will look at some of these other services that I mentioned. But if it does work out, I will work with Neil and Jay, because it's going to be a little bit of budget, and all of you. Jen, I know you talked about getting a headset. Do you have one?
No, but I want to.
Okay. Does anybody have a headset besides James?
I can borrow one from my kids.
I mean, look, and I think we should be able to have one. I think our committee, we don't always get I think we should be able to have one. They're not that expensive. If we can, So my husband, he's an IT person. We had a long talk. We can make some recommendations. I'd love to work with Neil, obviously, but we're all on different kind of computers. So maybe we can figure it out. I'm happy to buy my own too.
Yeah, and
But-
I've been on conference calls with people who are using headsets and their audio is terrible. So I think it would be worth our while to.
So that's interesting. So I've had the opposite, but Matt has a really good quality one, and he kind of swears by it. So I think it comes down to the technology again.
Right, that's what I was going to say, is that'd be worth our while to make sure if we're getting them, invest in a good quality so people can still hear us.
Yeah, I agree, because I've seen them on Amazon for like $20, but I'm guessing those aren't going to be the ones that we should buy.
Yep.
Amy?
I was just going to ask if we know of other school committees that are doing this or struggling with it. Maybe we can work something out. Like maybe they found a really good solution that we just don't know about yet.
I do have an answer to that question. And we were the ones who were kind of forward thinking, and I sent them all of what I had figured out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a shame, I guess, that this is also kind of crazy and new. And I would have just expected that this would be kind of built into Zoom at this point, some AI, and it isn't, which is fine. But Jay, did you have a comment?
I do not.
Okay, so I think my point on all this is that we are working on it, and I'm hoping that we can find a solution soon. Okay. Thank you for dealing with my crappy audio and my Google slide design work.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. All right. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, I think. Okay. We're back. Whew. All right, future agenda schedule planning. Anybody? So next week will be technically our last meeting before school opens, unless something changes and we're going to have some sort of emergency meeting. I would assume on that we're going to talk more about more reopening plans, any more additional information we have about budget, anything else people would like to see on the schedule. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All
We're
right.
being crickets.
I know. Well, if you don't answer me, I just keep talking and you guys know what happens. It's never good.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Well, I'm sure these things change. If something comes up, email me or Jay and we'll add it to the agenda. Approval of the minutes. We have 2 minutes. Can I have a motion?
Hold on, I'm just getting the minutes.
I didn't write that one down. Sorry.
Does anyone have any, which is the first one?
I think it's July
28th?
July 28th. Yeah.
Nope. So I'm looking at the wrong one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, here it is. Oh, yeah. So I'd like to make a motion for the minutes for July 14th, 2020.
I have a second.
That was a motion to approve the minutes. And
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I make a motion to approve the July 14th. Why do I have July 14th on there? Was it July 14th?
I
28th.
don't think so.
28th.
28.
I might be looking at the wrong folder.
Do you want me to share my screen again? Because that was fun.
That's okay. I'll just say, yeah, for July 28th.
Second.
Ooh, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I had something. What was it? Hold on.
I had something on the next one, but not this one.
I think it was that the questions and answers.
That she didn't call out names?
they're missing from this set, but the next one is fine.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. So I guess here's the question. Are we, because I noticed that we started posting the answers in a school committee page that says Q&A. There's only one there, and I think it was July 14th.
Yeah.
Is that where we're putting them, or are we putting them in minutes? Or both?
Well, I think we were putting the unanswered ones that we didn't get to in minutes. I mean, on that site, and we may not have gotten to it last time because of everything that's been going on. So the questions that we answered would be in our minutes, because it would be just like a public meeting if somebody came up and asked the questions. But the unanswered ones should go on that page. I'd have to look, I'd have to connect with Kristen when she got back to see if we have those from those meetings. I'll have to look through my notes if there were any.
So on these minutes, I'm not seeing any audience questions.
I mean,
No.
it would be surprising to me if, I mean, if Debney missed them, but I can double check with her. Do we want to pass on these minutes then? Okay. All right. We did have a motion. Can you withdraw your motion, Jen?
I have a travel motion.
I withdraw my second.
Thank you. So well done. All right, and then we have the August 4th.
My only question on August 4th was under Part B, like she just said students began on September 14th, and then we're the 16th.
I think at the time it was the 14th, and then I think,
thought we approved it on that day.
oh, you're right, you're right.
So I know that, I think it was definitely right on the 28th minutes, but the ones on the 4th should say the 16th.
Okay.
Because we clarified that at the end.
All right.
So that's right, right?
No, you're right, you're right. I noticed that too, but then I thought we had, I don't know, it had changed, because at one point it was the 14th, and then it moved.
Yeah, so I think it changed in between the 28th and the 4th. So on the 4th, it should reflect the 16th.
I agree.
That sounds right.
Okay. I think we can approve with that amended, so.
So I make a motion to accept the August 4th minutes with the corrections.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rahul Rati, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Laura Often. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. I'm not even gonna say it. Great, and then I don't know if we have any updates on the budgets. We talked about it earlier, Jay and Anita, but was there anything else?
Nothing past that. We'll do a more of a full presentation about what I talked about on the 8th.
Great, thank you. And we have a warrant. Yes, we do.
I move the committee vote to approve warrant number 8, dated August 20th, 2020, in the amount of $122,027.64.
Second.
Great, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rahul Rati, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we actually have a bunch of policy tonight. I have to apologize that we got it to you not as early as normal with vacation schedules. The subcommittee finally got together last night, but we do have some new policies that are going to affect the school and the start of the year. So I wanted to get them in for you. So apologies on that. Hopefully you had a little chance to review, or we can review them now. Is my internet still kind of not great?
It seems to be better.
Okay. Well, I have Liz with me. So Liz, if you want, I can share my screen and we can just kind of tandem this, if that works for you, or.
It's fine.
Okay. So Liz and I, we're the policy subcommittee, and we met last night with Jay to review a lot of policy. Good. Okay. All right. So, and if you can't hear me, just jump in, Liz, please.
Okay.
And you're welcome to. I don't mean to just take over either.
That's fine. You're doing great.
Okay. Good, yeah. So we have our first is on face coverings. So we know we've talked a lot about this. This was a policy issued by the Massachusetts Association for School Committees. I think we took their policy and just made a few edits to it. And it talks about obviously who should wear them, who's excused from the wearing a face mask, and when you don't have to wear a face mask if you're during mask breaks or eating or drinking while outside, if you can do 6 feet or more enforced on that. We know we're still waiting for some guidance on what these masks will be, so this policy reflects that the masks need to be under the Massachusetts guidelines. Liz, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
So any questions from the committee on this one?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So I see at the very bottom of this policy that there are some legal references and the DESE reopening guidelines and the Mask Up Mask page. When you say with the Massachusetts guidelines, is that collection of information, is that what you're referring to?
Nope. What we're referring to is what we mentioned earlier about, well, yes, I guess, yes, and we're for like if they come out and say the gaiters are not okay, or you need to have a filter in your mask. We didn't want to have to wait for that to get this to a first reading, so we added that in. So right now I can't say that we can't tell people, yep, those gaiters are fine, because we don't know that they're fine. So we wanted to keep it a little general.
Okay. Okay, so bottom of the first page where it says face masks or face coverings will not be required when appropriate social distancing of 6 feet or more is enforced. And there's some situations there that are very, very specific. And I wonder if we need something generic in there as well. For example, if and when we can go back to having band. Kids who play, woodwind and brass instruments, they can't play with a mask on. So they would have to take the mask off in band. And as this policy is written now, they wouldn't be able to do that, is my understanding. So I don't know if we need something else like other situations as appropriate and approved by staff. I don't know. Or we could specifically put band or chorus or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what other situations are going to arise that we might allow it. So I don't know if this is too specific.
We could say, to keep it a little more broad, we could say 6 feet or more is enforced, comma, for example, in the following situations.
Yeah, that would work. For example,
And
that
then
opens it up a little bit.
leverage some ability to expand it.
Okay.
I was going to put, for example, between enforced.
Actually, Liz, are you in the document like on your computer?
No.
So it's super difficult for me to live edit during a meeting and run the meeting and all of that. Normally I'd have it printed in front of me in a book, and I didn't do that.
I have it open.
Yeah, but
as a personal copy.
Yeah, no, thanks. Can you just say it again then? What you guys want?
I think when social distancing of 6 feet or more is enforced, for example.
Oh, okay. So I just put the for example in the wrong place.
Yeah, just a comma after enforced, and then you're good.
Yeah, well, any kind of grammatical, that stuff, we'll deal with that when we bring it up. Thanks, because it's just going to be a slog. Okay, any other questions or
Yep, next paragraph, it says staff members are responsible for providing their own face coverings. My understanding is that's not true. They may, but they're not they don't have to. They can take one from the district every day, is my
Yep.
understanding.
That's accurate, Amy.
So I would say that, yeah.
Okay. Don't have to sound a little angry there.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to be heard because I don't have a good microphone.
Staff members are responsible for providing, you're right, yeah. I think we could just take that out.
Mhm. Yep.
And then maybe just say the district instead of however. District will supply disposable face masks for anyone or without.
Yep.
All right, any other thoughts?
A little bit further down, it says visitors in violation of this policy will be denied entry. What if they're already in the building? They're in the building, they take their mask off.
Denied entry or ask to leave the school district facility.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, we've got lots to go, Amy. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was questioning, and I'm not sure if this is
No,
covered in this, but I was asking earlier if teachers are alone in their classroom, do they have to wear a mask? And that's not really, it's not stated that, I don't know, it just seems too specific, sort of, so I'm not sure.
Well, then they're 6 feet. They're 6 feet apart from anyone. So
Hold on, go back to it. And then it says it is enforced in the following situations. So that's, I guess that's kind of, it just sounds like those are the situations. So I just want to make sure that it's okay.
I think they can consider that a mask break.
Okay. So that's all. I just wanted to make sure that it's not so,
Stringent.
yeah.
I mean, kind of. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, let's think about what a policy is, right? It's setting the tone. It's a guideline. It's kind of to cover our butts.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
again, all right.
As long as we consider that mask breaks, then.
Yeah, I'm sure that teachers would want to know if they can take their masks off when they're sitting alone in their classroom. I mean, I think that's a good question. And Jay, do you have a thought on that?
About what to put in the policy, or they could take, if they're alone in the classroom, yeah, of course they could.
Yeah, I think that as I was reading the policy, I kept reading it as that it basically had to be on at all times unless it was certain situations. That was the way I was reading it, but that may not necessarily be what it is.
Okay.
I think it's just the way I read it, so
as long as you can
yeah.
socially distance by 6 feet or more, then
You're good.
yeah, I mean, with kids, we're going to monitor them a little bit more, but the teachers can enforce that for themselves.
Cool. All right, great. So we'll bring that back for a second reading. I need a motion to approve with the edits.
I make a motion to approve Section E Support Services EBCFA face coverings as a first reading.
Second. Second.
All right, great. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Great. All those in favor? Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
and Rahul Rati,
Already, aye.
and Laura Often. Aye. Great. Thanks. So this is gonna be tough. All right. I know we had some viewers who wanted to get to the Bruins tonight, but I don't know if you're gonna get out early. All right, next is a new policy on remote learning. This was guidance coming out again from MASC. And let's see, God, so annoying. And this talks about why we would need remote learning if it was a weather emergency, destruction or damage to the schools, or other extraordinary circumstances or cases of disease. And it just gives us an official policy that we can go remote and what our remote learning plan will look like. And I think that our remote planning follows all of these rules. So this is really, I think, just some specific guidance and allowing our district to go remote when needed and thinking ahead to hopefully when we get back in normal times, if something happens, we'll be able to, if a tree falls on a school in a storm or doesn't have heat one day, we could move everybody remotely, maybe more seamlessly than we have in the past. Liz, any further discussion on this one?
Nope, nothing to add.
Thank you. All right, any questions or concerns about this policy? None? If there aren't any, I will take a motion.
I make a motion to accept section I instruction IHBHE remote learning as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rowlett, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries. All right, we'll bring all these, and just a reminder, so Rahul and Liz, really, you guys haven't been through a policy reading yet. So we bring these as a first reading. We'll make the edits, although I made live edits here. We'll bring them back cleaned up next time, so you have another chance to review, and if you have any other questions or thoughts that come up in between, we have another chance before it's final policy. So that's what a first reading means, and I'm sorry I didn't explain that. So it's nice because it gives us time, because sometimes you might take it, especially because you don't have a lot of time in these advanced, you might go home and think about the math policy some more and come up with questions, and then we can discuss it next time, which is great. Next policy, this is the addendum to the remote learning policy. And it just gives us a list of issues to consider when developing remote learning plans. I think last night we didn't have any real additional thoughts or questions on this, Liz. It's just kind of things to think about when you're developing. And I mean, this is more for our administration and team, but to remember, does this impact collective bargaining? Do we have the resources? Equity, I mean, that's a big thing that we've been thinking about. And the nice thing about this is I think we have thought about this, even though we didn't have this policy in place, which is great. But I don't know if you have anything else that maybe was left out that we should think about. Okay. And if not, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to accept section I instruction pandemic IHBHE-E remote learning addendum as a first reading.
Thank you. I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rowlett, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney.
Aye.
All right, Laura Often, aye. Motion carries. All right, okay. Moving right along. All right. And then we brought this up. This is one we've looked at in the past. This is on our alternative education home instruction policy. We wanted to review this policy with you again because we've obviously had a lot of questions and people reaching out about homeschooling. And we worked with Tracy Kalo, who's responsible kind of for working with parents who are developing a home education plan and what that means. I think people understand now that homeschooling is different than remote learning academy. And the one thing we added in this policy that's new is we added number 7 for this Participation in extracurricular activities and or specials by the homeschool students is at the discretion of the superintendent. In the past, I think, and Jay, you can jump in here, we were pretty, I think, free with kids who maybe wanted to come in and take a lesson in art or join a sport, even though they were homeschooled and are technically not kids in the district anymore. And then this year, and probably future too, we just need to make sure we look at resources, and it just can't be as loose as it was in the past. So we wanted to give Jay some authority in letting people go in or out. So that doesn't mean it's a no, it just means that they need to go through the superintendent. He's going to review the resources and make sure that it's okay. Does that?
That's perfect, Laura. Thank you.
So any questions? Liz, do you have anything you want to add to this one?
No, sounds good.
And then Tracy did work on this with us as well. Tracy, did you have anything you wanted to add? I'm sorry.
No, I think you captured it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so if there aren't any questions, I'll take a motion.
I had a question, actually.
Yeah, sure.
So this has come up, it's come up recently. This idea that if I take my child out of the district, that I should expect to receive some level of support from the district in terms of materials or, you know, curriculum or whatever. And I don't know if this is a good time, maybe for the second reading, to look into that, adding a line that basically makes it crystal clear that if you're taking your child out of district, it's your responsibility to provide those things. We're asking them to list what they're going to use, but we're not saying, hey, we're not providing you this material. Does that make sense? Because that question came up at least twice on the Facebook group.
It makes sense, but I don't know if, I'm trying to think if the policy is where we would put that. And I don't know if Liz, what do you think? If we want to think about it more and bring it back first in the second reading.
It's something, it's worth thinking about. Yeah.
I think so too. I don't know if I want to do it on the fly right now, but we'll think about it and bring it back in time for the second reading, Amy.
Yep.
I'd like to look at, see how other, I think I think it's a good point. All right, Liz, can you capture that? Just,
Yeah, I'm taking note of that.
Perfect.
So my other question actually has to do with number 7, since it's new. Is that standard language for other districts? Or other districts doing it, and I'm going to use the phrase, by the seat of their pants, or are they just saying no? And what's our liability?
I don't think there's any, I'm not aware of any liability. I don't have any idea what other districts are doing. I can't imagine right now that just having kids randomly, we don't know where they've been, what they're doing, you know, they're in that homeschooling situation, any student, homeschool or not, coming in, like we're not going to have remote learning academy students just come into the building and jump into an art class or, you know, anything like that. I can't imagine that a district would allow it. I can ask around, but I can't imagine the, in terms of like health and safety, it would seem a little crazy to do that to me.
And I think even if when we go back, it's good. I think I like this because it gives, there's still some leeway with the superintendent to be able to approve or not approve. But I can see why you wouldn't. I mean, if the class is overcrowded, for instance, I mean, when you withdraw from the district, we don't get state funding. They're not counted as a student. I mean, yes, you still pay your taxes to the schools, but but this way, there's always exceptions, and that'll be up to the superintendent, I guess. I mean, while we're looking, Amy, I'm happy to pull. I definitely did when I was putting this together initially, but I'll look at the standard MASC policy too and see what they have. That's what we've been trying to do a little bit more with our policies, is to make them a little more standard with MASCs. It looked like a lot of them were kind of hand or just they're older, so we're trying to update them with MASC a little bit more. So we'll just take a look since we're gonna look at this again as well anyway. But I think you guys kind of get the spirit of it, maybe. Any other questions on this one? Concerns? Okay, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept section IHBG Alternative Education Home Instruction Policy as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, aye.
Amy Mar,
Amy Mar, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Rahul Rati, aye.
Liz Finney,
Aye.
Laura Often, aye. Okay. Attendance. So we spent a little bit of time on this one last night. We wanted to be clear about what being absent was, person or remote learning. And we discussed what these were, you know, why you would be absent. So, and if they're absent, they still get the opportunity to make up all the missed work. And that was the only thing, attendance one. There's the next one that kind of talks about gets more into absences and the cause of them. Those of you who've been on the committee before, we actually, I think, just looked at this like last fall. So this was the only thing we added in this one, just to be clear that what being absent meant. Any questions?
I had one question.
Okay.
This policy, first paragraph says acceptable reason for being absent. And then in the next policy, it talks about unexcused absences. And I don't know if it's just me being particular, but it doesn't really define. Acceptable is not used in the next policy, but unexcused is. And I don't know if that's.
So do you think, would you feel better if we said excused versus is acceptable in this?
I think so, because I think that's a term that's familiar.
Did
And-
we lose Dr. Cummings?
His camera's off, but
So I can speak.
there.
Yes. So the state considers any absence, when a student doesn't attend school, that's an absence. It doesn't matter what the reasoning may be.
Right.
But the local district is able to determine what would be excused and what would be unexcused. So you're better off going with the language of excused and unexcused.
So that's a good, thanks for bringing that up. So why don't we say excused?
How about excusable?
Thank you. Cool. Any other questions? I think the unexcused excuse thing is complicated. And we've talked about it like a million, like not a million, several times over the years since I've been on this committee. But this year, I think it's going to be even more important. Okay, any other thoughts or questions about this? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept JE attendance K through 12 as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jen Conley?
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Mar?
Amy Mar, aye.
Liz Spinney?
Aye.
Rahul Rati?
Rahul Rati, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries. I see a quick question about this policy. Okay. It's a comment. All right, so here's the student attendance, the reference to this. So we wanted to add, what we were concerned about, what we talked about last night was somebody might not be ill, but they might need to quarantine for 14 days. So they won't be able to go to school. We've had discussions that you can't just pop into a remote learning cohort. So you're technically going to be at least out of school for 5 days, and hope, and then you'll be able to catch on with your own remote learning cohort. That could add up pretty quickly. So we wanted to make sure that quarantine was an excused absence. And that could be followed through with a written documentation from a parent or guardian or physician that a child needed to quarantine. And we wanted to really stress that this year, like, if you are feeling run down or sick or you need to quarantine, don't come to school, and don't be afraid of this 10-day or whatever unexcused policy. Was anything to add on this? Was there anything else in this one? And then we worked on this, I can't remember when.
Sake, I don't have it up on my own screen. Can you scroll down for a second?
Sure. Oh, I'm unstable again.
Yeah.
Clearly. I think this one, Liz, we talked about that some of this would be under the policy, but that we created. Because obviously we're not going to have Saturday school this year.
Right.
And I think that's in here. So we have go ahead.
Yeah, so we talked about that and how it's in here, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be used, but this is a long-term policy, so.
And at the end, we have something that we'll share that will help kind of overarch that, which I probably should have put first in this packet, but I didn't. It's a surprise. Any other questions?
Everyone's very excited about that.
I was super excited about it. Amy she's excited.
I am. I love this stuff. So okay.
I know you do.
Under high school, excessive absences, there's the word unexcused, right?
Yeah.
But if 10 unexcused, but then it doesn't appear again under middle school or elementary school. And I didn't have time to go back and watch prior meetings to kind of get to the bottom of that. But is that purposeful, or is it a mistake?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not a mistake. No, it could be a mistake. I believe it was purposeful. And Jen, maybe you remember this. I guess this was before you.
I think this had credit and how much you get when you to graduate.
So technically, like, people think, and I'm going to rephrase what Jay has said to me. We obviously encourage people to attend school. That's super important. But in elementary school, like, if you miss 11 days, people like, oh no, I missed 10 days. But in high school, that really starts to impact your credits and your schooling. So that's why it kind of matters more, I guess. So I think this policy, or spirit of this policy, that it's really, we're trying to get kids to go to what happens if you don't get to school. We go, like, I remember now, there was like suspension from school if you were absent for a while, which made no sense to me, because why would you want people to be out for more days? So this gives, we have the parent conference and attendance plan, really trying to help kids find out, why are you not going to school? What's going on? How can we help you? And what can we do? But again, this year being kind of that kids probably are going to be out of school more, especially if they have to quarantine. We wanted to just make it a little more flexible for that.
So this policy is just district, but that's a possibility, because I've gotten one in the past. We could still get truancy letters. I mean, I had that experience.
But you get, and
You're breaking up a little bit, Laura.
that's okay.
All right. Can you repeat what you just said?
Well, I was kind of glad I got broken up. But what I was saying is, like, so you get the truancy letter, and I don't want to put you or your family on the spot, Amy, but really what happens with that letter?
Right. It's just the first time you get it.
Yeah, I know. And that's from the state. That's not from
right.
Grafton.
That's why I wanted to get that out there, that, we're not saying that the state is going to treat it any differently. It's just, we're going to treat it differently.
Right. And this is the Grafton kind of student attendance expectations and what happens if you don't come to school. And it's mostly the high school that has these kind of, It is the high school, it's not mostly. So But the goal is obviously to get kids to school and make sure they feel safe, and that if they're not, but we may have to quarantine, and don't be freaked out that you're going to get that letter or whatever.
Well, that was something that, I don't know if you've already said it, Laura, and you were cut off, but you said something last night about, we want to create this environment where parents don't send their kids to school sick just because they're trying to meet the demands of a policy. If your kid is sick, they should stay home. And
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Yep, I get it.
Okay, cool. Good question stuff. All right. Here he is. Hi. Welcome back. Do we have an approval? Can I have a first reading? Motion.
I make a motion to accept policy pandemic JE-R1 student attendance K-12 as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? John Conley,
Jennifer Connelly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Laura TI.
Laura Often. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. It's a long policy. All right, K1, visitors to the school. This is a new policy as well. For a couple reasons we're bringing this up. One, we thought we actually should have a policy in place on visitors. This is from MASC recommendations. And then this year, we wanted to, our schools are very welcoming to the community and to families, as they should be, but unfortunately this year we're going to have to limit visitors to the schools. And when I kind of looked to update the policy, I was surprised we didn't really have one. So this policy, it's a little bit of a shift, but it works with making sure that the principals are aware if any parent or community member wants to come in and observe the classes. This gives them a little bit of framework on how to work with it. It's by no means, at least I don't think, and I think Liz, you'd agree, trying to limit people coming into the schools. We obviously, we were all big family volunteers when our kids were in elementary school and still are. But this is just to kind of give some parameters to our principals, as well as this up top, the superintendent, giving the superintendent the right to propose suspension or modifying visitor policies during anytime, really. I mean, it could be an emergency situation in the schools or the pandemic, and just opening up a little bit more guidelines. Liz, did you want to add? I'm so sorry.
I don't think so. That's summed it up well.
Okay. Any questions on this one?
There's one question from the audience if the committee doesn't have any.
I have one.
Jen Conley.
So no, it's more the wording of the third paragraph. Was that something that we allow at all?
That's a good question. I had never heard of it.
So for those in the audience, without, like visiting teachers to see, to compare teaching styles. Like I just never, I don't know. It sounds like an odd paragraph.
I'm guessing, well, that's in there for just, this is kind of a standard policy and we can edit it for sure for Grafton. To have that in there, just, I don't know.
Just because when you say it's discouraged, then it means that you also could do it.
Yeah, I think you can take it out. I mean, occasionally we'll have parents or guardians set up a meeting. They'll go with a principal but it's not to compare teachers and styles. It's going to be, they moved from out of state. Maybe they want to get a sense of what the Grafton Public Schools look like, and maybe they'll go in and kind of tour a grade level or something. But as far as this purpose, it doesn't exist. I didn't catch it last night.
I'm happy to take it out, Liz, too. If you are, or if you want to think about it.
I'm just seeing if kind of what you're saying, Jay, is already covered by the second paragraph, and I think it is. So I was just considering whether we could revise that the third paragraph, but I don't think we need to. So yeah, I agree. We could take it out. Boom.
Magic. Yeah, that's a good catch. I think I did catch it last night and I didn't say anything.
But you did go out yesterday, so.
That's why we review with the committee. Any other questions or thoughts? And I guess there was a question from the audience.
Yeah, Terry Turgeon is asking how the visitor policy would relate to itinerant teachers.
I don't know what that word means. Itinerant.
That would be a teacher, maybe for the blind, like a low incidence teacher who's going between
Couple of buildings.
different schools, different
Oh,
buildings,
sure.
that type of thing. I think
I guess I don't consider that a visitor. That's a staff member.
I would think we'd have an internal policy, which I mean, we do have policies and procedures for that. I know that Bob Wall and Nicole McDonald have talked about how those policies and procedures change. I don't know off the top of my head if they've actually changed them already, but given the pandemic, et cetera. So I can certainly find out, but I don't think it would. I think that's going to be an actual procedure, like an internal procedure as opposed to district policy.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Sense.
Okay. Any other questions to this one? Okay, hearing none. I'll take a motion to approve as a first reading.
I make a motion to accept policy section KI, visitors to the schools, as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Laura T.I.
Laura Often, aye. All right, and I think we are almost done. This is great. All right, Liz, I'm going to pass this over to you.
All right. So this was in response to a lot of suggested changes that the Mass Association of School Committees had made to a bunch of different policies. And we thought that we could just combine them into one overarching policy that refers to all of those instead of having to go through and amend. As you can see, there's a bullet list of a bunch of different policies that would just be changed to provide language that allows the superintendent to react in emergency situations, such as in situations of a pandemic. So when there's an emergency declaration in place, we're giving the superintendent the ability to act quickly to modify these policies to the extent necessary, so that the school day can, so that the students can remain safe and the school day can continue effectively and efficiently as possible. So the list of policies and bullets here are those that this would apply to. That's the first paragraph. And then we note that these suspension of policies would expire when the emergency is lifted. And then the second part of this at the bottom, there are certain circumstances under which the superintendent can propose temporary changes to the following. So that would be changes to extracurricular activity eligibility and student absences. So it's, let's see, in the first bullet list, one other thing I'll mention is that some of those policies, the changes or suspension are subject to approval by the school committee. So that's sort of repeated grading and graduation requirements. We would have to approve those as well. And then as far as student transportation goes, we wanted to note that where there are IEPs that are affected by student transportation, that those wouldn't be altered without family consent. and it'll also be consistent with the back to school plan we have in place. So any questions about what this is doing? Oh, and then the other thing is referring to the calendar. So giving the superintendent in a emergency situation the ability to amend the school calendar.
I think this is a great idea rather than having to track down all those changes and undo them later. The only question I had was, does this then become policy CJ to add to the list? Because you have it as section C.
Oh, that's a mistake.
Oh yeah, I thought the number was different.
I think it probably is on the, I know I looked it up. Sorry for making everybody seasick. It's CHB.
Oh, okay.
So good catch, and my apologies on that.
Oh yeah, look at that. We had a hole there.
Yep. So thank you. Yep.
No, this is great. Nice job on this.
That's Liz Spinney. Remarkable. But Jay and I were very encouraging.
Yes.
I saw that list of all the recommended changes come out, and I was like, this is going to be the longest meeting ever, trying to track down all of these policies and fix them all. And
Yeah, well, we did.
Doing that. We started going through that at our policy meeting last night, and then we switched to this route instead.
Yeah, but the ones that we needed to implement, there were obviously several new ones, and ones that needed to kind of be changed. We did that. So great. So I'll take a motion.
Just making sure it's CHB. Is that what you said?
Yeah, CHB. Sorry, Jen.
I can't really see that. So, all right. So I make a motion to accept policies section CHB. Thank you. As the first reading.
second.
Sorry. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Jen Conley.
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Liz Spinney.
Aye.
Amy Marr.
Aye.
Rahul Rati.
Roller TI.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Woo! And we made it through. So thank you to Liz and Jay, and we'll bring these back for a second reading next week, and we'll look into some of the questions, or in 2 weeks, to hopefully get these approved and disseminated. So thank you all. I know this is a bit of a slog, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be over Zoom.
Yeah, thank
Zoom
you.
was a little easier because we could share the screen.
Great input.
Yeah, thanks everybody. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. All right. And member reports. How's everybody doing? Anybody have anything they need to share?
No, I mean, I'll just say as just to thank Kristen Gasper and Tony LeMay for allowing the school committee to go into the classrooms to see the difference of 3 feet and 6 feet in the lunchroom. So that's something that we did together, but I appreciate them taking the time to do that.
I second that. That was great. Very helpful.
Yeah. Third. Anybody else? Amy, did you have a?
Yeah, I had one small thing. The Capital Improvement Planning Committee has continued to meet, and we are scheduled to meet with the Select Board on the 1st, so next week, to go over a bylaw that has been significantly altered. The committee tried to bring something up a couple years ago at town meeting. It didn't pass. We've now kind of brought it back, figured out what we want to do. We're going to get the Select Board to weigh in on the 1st. I will not be there to represent school committee, but because it's election day and everybody should go vote if you haven't yet. But I have every confidence that this is going to be good for us. Basically, the bylaw pertains to the role of the committee and how we would advise the Select Board and the town administrator on capital planning to hopefully bring back a process that used to exist but hasn't really been going on for a while. Nothing earth-shattering, but it's been interesting and fun. And I'm looking forward to town meeting when it will hopefully be on the warrant.
Great. Is there anything you need from the committee at all right now regarding capital needs, or we're just still in planning?
So I'm not really sure where the process stands right now because we have an interim town administrator in name only. He's off this week, as Jay said. So once he's back, I believe he intends to start the budget process. So at that point, we'll start working with whatever we get from the departments. I assume Jay's got the capital plan, and we'll probably go with whatever he's going to give us. I can't imagine it's changed that much, AJ. Yeah, you're on mute. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't have much to add, but other than taking up the projects that we did do over the summer, it's going to be the same.
Yep, that's what I figured. So I don't know what the process is going to look like this year, but the plan that we're putting into place is really for future years. Hopefully, if the town passes it. So.
Great.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's fun.
Thanks. Perfect. James, I wanted to check in with you. Any word on high school? And I know you've been doing some tours for the incoming 9th graders.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the tours are going on this week, and I gave a few yesterday. And that was my first time back in the high school in quite a while. And it was good to see the new setup and everything, and it looks good.
Yeah, just as I was there as a mom yesterday, and it looked great. And the team over there was terrific. And Anya's sister was our tour guide, and I was so excited. And so Anya used to be a student rep on school committee. And then I left, and my daughter was like, "Do you have to talk to everybody?" So I tried not to, but it was nice to see. She looks just like Anya. So anyway, you did a great job, and it's been good to start getting back. And I know the elementary schools I saw, North Grafton has had popsicle socials, which is wonderful. And North Street's having 6th grade celebration this week. And so it's good to get things are starting to happen. It might be different, but still good.
Yep.
Right. Any other member reports? Sorry if I stole your ice cream social.
Yes, okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Thursday 4 to 6. We're looking forward to seeing the outgoing 6th graders from North Street.
Yeah.
Finally having a little celebration together.
And correspondence, I put it on so I wouldn't forget again. I had a couple emails from teachers. One was asking me why the letter wasn't read, and one was concerned about the remote learning as well. Most of the correspondence we've all seen, it's been very public, which is nice on Facebook. And again, Jay, you're doing a remarkable, wonderful job on that page. Thank you for your dedication and transparency to the committee. And I think do we need to go into executive session? Don't think so. All right, well then we'll take an adjournment and maybe a happy birthday. So happy birthday, Dr. Cummings. Thanks for spending your night with us.
Oh, can't think of a better way to spend it.
Me neither. It's gonna be a great year. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All right, motion made and second. Jen Conley?
Jen Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr?
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney?
Aye.
Rahul T?
LRTI.
Laura Austin, aye. All right, everybody, good night.